Back when I was occurring on Earth, all the yogis donned ugly gray suits that pinched their stomachs and widened their shoulders. The ennobled wore their suits to gymnasiums, eateries, supermarkets, and public parks where, competing to be the ugliest yogi in their locality, they would trade voyeuristic glimpses of their outerwear. Because hideousness was believed to correlate with high libido and wealth, the yogis took selfies and uploaded the resulting JPEGs to a web application alternatively known as the alphabet or the cloud, which connected them via permeable invisible tubes, stored their identification numbers, reminded the ennobled to browse their investment portfolios, and so forth. The yogis championed breathing exercises that excoriated sin and neutralized the intellect. Even the pious consumed low-grade cocaine they sourced from theaters where contraband was exchanged between acts. It was considered worldly to gather in the bathroom stalls and converse about the performance when it's seen, while a generous associate maneuvered the communal dose into a line or syringe. In the capitals, experimentation with supplemental hormones flourished. Among the creditors, always tinkering away at their currencies, slavery and androgyny coincided. As such, tendered notes could be sent to printers in remote locations across the globe wirelessly. And not long after, the intercontinental empires relegated prostitution to the digital banlieues the empires themselves had bankrolled. Though the cults hid from view, they still found ways to debase the gods under ever-changing terms, such that common folk celebrated precisely what had been deemed abominable decades prior. Language existed to give people names for things, but no one could competently ascertain if language was data or a compressed force. One could take a train from destination X to destination Y, for instance, and at Y the course that one had traveled would change along with its representation. Even if parlance took similar forms, custom varied widely. The regions were split along vertical meridians so that when night transpired, it was allotted the same chronological sequence, so that darkness was made tolerable, familiar. Few could perceive, let alone express, these blissful conditions, which upended popular discourse. It was during this time that I began to wonder if I were a roaming spirit cooped up in my home studio. Each threshold I crossed, each doorway I moved through bore into me, and after some time I realized that the further I traveled from where I started, the more I would degrade. It wasn't enough to be immobile, since I had initiated the process, it couldn't be reversed. A witch and her wife took pity on me and introduced me to the local medium, who indirectly suggested the remedy to my condition. I can neither identify nor lift curses, he said. With those instructions, I returned home and smeared green liquid over the lids of my eyes. I looked into the mirror and called to F 3 times, who in turn dialed from wherever he was. But I couldn't hear him through the sobs. It sounded like he had been barricaded inside a cement door. I could hear a shower running, yelping too. Imagining his pupils locked like mine in the mirror, I wished for lush trees with honey-red apples, turquoise leaves, a blue heart. I felt the apples grow swollen and heavy without bearing their weight in my hand. One soared through my mouth, and before I could taste it, I sensed information wetted skin and fruit. I am tasting the soil from which it sprouted, I thought, the soil which the tree has purified and sweetened. The thought of the apple touched my lips first, then my teeth, which it chilled. When the thought of the apple came upon my tongue analyzed that cold, wet place. It told me to return there, to go downward. So I lay down on the ground and spread my appendages. In my mind, I let the incidents that preceded and followed this event wither into non-integers. 000.000001, I said. 000.000001. I kept burrowing downward, pursuing the route. I was someone from somewhere at some point, but none of that seemed relevant anymore. Or this was the case until I dreamt the staircase again, until the bedrooms in the home I had abandoned returned to memory, so that I could revisit them at whim, until the vacuum cleaner mother had all those years ago destroyed reappeared in my closet, until the belt with which Tomas had throttled me in Mexico City returned to its spot above the mantle. Consciousness infects whatever it touches with disappointment and vitality, I thought. At least this is what I tell myself when I'm reminded that I'm alive, when feeling trapped alongside this body, when my helmet drifts away. F called again, said that our past life was starting to unjam in his memory. The stockades, eating bulgogi lettuce wraps. The letter returned via Japanese post with its blue, red, and white brand. The Ducati Superbike 899 Panigale motorcycle accident. I'm going blind and senseless and dumb, he said. It's too expansive. I told him to lie down with me on the carpet. For a moment, I took his hand and stroked his arm. You have to remember that at each juncture, the game widens, I told him, and the field on which play occurs deepens proportionately. I took the cat ears from my head and placed them over his. I removed my watch and fastened it around my wrist. I removed my watch and fastened it around his wrist. No matter how dark or cold the cellar grew, I told him that it would be just a few more minutes before the next chess piece on the board was moved, until we were unburdened. With my finger, I traced the address of the old Schönborn Palace onto his forehead. He put his head into my breast, smelled my black skin as if it were possible to atone, to receive mercy. 00.000001, he said. 00.00000001, I said. It continued like that for some time, until the idea of the apple had adequately sunk into the lower depths, at which point I looked back into the camera, sighed. I retreated. With my remaining nectars, I drew leopard spots into our skins. I pulled myself along the ground with my paws, stretching my stomach. F rolled on his back and stared upward, likewise pawing at the cloud-like sediment. I could sense fanged angels sweeping the perimeter, the fog accruing as the screens containing our image multiplied across the heavenly networks, and the screen grabs and the digital windows and the gifs repeating our namesake. None of this was conveyed. Millennia later, when the archaeologists were excavating the cast marble sculptures searching for homosexual pornography, the delicateness with which our flesh had been applied was rediscovered, along with the plaque at the base of the pedestal, which described the commodity lowering itself through an earthen floor. By then, we were deep into the ground, milling about, eaten and shat by worms for whom the idea of the apple was but a z-axis, a vestigial wavelength in their gelatinous Wi-Fi-equipped spines, a forlorn and unorganizable human day. The viewership in the sky wept and laughed accordingly, pressing their beaks into place, tapping their screams to indicate tears and applause, as if they too had had a kinetic impulse, could remember.